Hello, good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Okay, fine. Srimant is there, Nishant, Ashika Jain, Rachana, Mandre, Madan. Then who else? How many are there? 6 have joined now. Sanjay. Sanjay must have come for the first time. Then who else are there? 7 have joined. Rakshita Hebbar has made it today. Pooja Joshi has come in. Then Prasanna Kumar is there. 9. Vidyashri, Rashmi Kotihal, Sri Vidya. Sri Vidya, is it the first time you are coming to my class? Hello, Sri Vidya.
No, sir.
I think you had not attended any earlier classes.
No, sir. I attended.
Is it okay? Navya has come, Pooja, Pranav Hegde. Who else?
Yes, sir.
15 are there. Where is your friend, your counterpart from Mathur?
Srivani.
Yeah, where is she?
Maybe network problem, sir.
Okay, Adarsh. Adarsh, can you hear me? Hello, Adarsh.
Yes, sir.
Fine.
Sir.
Okay. Be on the line. Let me see whether it has reached 25. It is 16. 16 now, and it is already 11. Everybody else join. The 17 were joined now. Divya has joined. Deepika, Rupa Nayak. Yeah, 24 are there today as of now. Nikhil has joined. 26 who has joined. Srivani has made it. Shweta Mary has come. Sushmita, number is good today. 27 as of now. I think Bhumika is connecting. Then Pradeepa has joined. Who else? It's all known faces only. Ganesh Raikar has joined. Now it is 27. Let me start. Okay, I will start sharing the screen. We can see the PPTs. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Fine. 28, then Shantaram has come now. Go Shantaram. 30, who has come now? Today, Rajesh has come. All these are being recorded. That's why I am naming. I can replay and
Yes.
note your attendance later. That's why I am repeating. If any name is not mentioned, you can call out. Okay. Who is
Yes, sir.
Sachin? Sachin is there. His icon. What is this? Bharatiya
Okay.
Vidyarthi Parishad. Okay. Fine. So 29 are there. Good number, but still less than 50%. Fine. Okay. We start sharing the screen. Hope you will be able to see this. Yeah, can you see this one?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, fine. Please look into this. Yeah, we had started the discussion on the third unit in corporate valuation, that is about advanced issues in valuation. In the previous slide, we looked into the issues involved in the valuation of multi-business company, then multi-country, multi-location businesses or companies. Now the next thing is and the value of valuation of past. Another country we noted the importance of considering the differences in the international accounting practices and standards, as well as the differences in the respective countries' tax regimes, corporate tax regimes. Then the need for estimating the cost of capital from the perspective of the global investor, because the shareholders of your company, say for example, originating in India but having businesses in a different countries, he is exposed to a lot of risks. So naturally, his expected rate of return, or what we call R, will be quite high because he is exposed to the risks the company's business would be facing in different countries other than its home country, that is India. So naturally, the R will be very high. As a result of this, the KE will be very high. The cost of equity will be very high. And when the cost of equity goes up, naturally, you know, the weighted average cost of capital will go up. And weighted average cost of capital is the discount factor we use for discounting the future cash flows. So while undertaking the valuation of companies having businesses in multiple countries, with obvious differences in respect of the accounting and taxation issues between the host countries as well as the home country, the valuer is required to take into account these differences and design or draw out his valuation process accordingly. Otherwise, his valuation will become faulty. The next is in applying the framework of DCF valuation, that is the discounted cash flow approach or method for valuing the companies in emerging markets. This is a new concept. Probably you have come across this term called emerging markets. We have a group of countries called BRICS. You must have heard of this word, BRICS, like Brazil, Russia, then Israel, then China and India, Indonesia, Mexico. Some of these countries are called the emerging markets. That is, compared to the developed countries like US, UK, Japan, Germany, France, etc. Now, in the last, say, 2 decades following the globalization, several new countries have joined this process of development, process of growth, economic growth, and they are being identified as emerging markets. For example, India is an emerging market, Brazil is an emerging market, Israel is an emerging market, attracting a lot of foreign direct investment into these countries, these economies, because the developed countries have reached a saturation point and there is no further, the marginal returns are coming down there. So investors in these countries are looking to new markets where the growth potential is very high. For example, barring the last 1 year, the India's GDP was growing at say 7 to 8%, 6.5 to 7.5%. Is one of the highest growth rates in the world. Whereas US was growing at 1%, Japan was growing at less than 1%. So compare the growth rate of the developed countries and these countries. So these countries are considered as emerging markets. Now, while valuing a company in the emerging market using the DCF method, what you have to bear in mind is the higher inflation and greater macroeconomic characteristics. Please note these emerging markets like India or Brazil or Israel, though they have huge growth potential in the next few years to come, they also display two, three strange features. One is high inflation. The inflation rate in these countries is very, very high. Naturally, the cost of operations will be very high. Naturally, the profitability will be under pressure. The margin will be under pressure. And to that extent, the equity shareholders would be, or their returns would be affected. So that is one issue you have to face in the emerging markets besides the enormous growth potentials these markets offer. Second is lot of macroeconomic risks are there. In fact, these countries are stabilizing their policies, whether it is fiscal policy, monetary policy, government regulations. Lot of changes are there, lot of amendments, lot of um, new initiatives are coming in. Lot of uncertainties are there, policy uncertainties are there. Nothing is settled. Everything is being experimented in these countries by their respective governments to keep up the pace of development, to consolidate the benefits of growth, etc. So, lot of uncertainties is also there in these emerging markets. So, these two are very important factors. One is very high inflation prevailing in these countries, probably because of the supply demand mismatch, because of the huge purchasing power in the hands of the people. The demand side is very high, whereas the supply side is not matching. Naturally, there will be very high inflation. Secondly, there will be a lot of uncertainties with respect to macroeconomic variables, the environment of business, the environment, a lot of uncertainties will be there. So these two are the risks the valuer will have to consider while valuing a company in an emerging market like India. So that is one issue as a valuer you are required to know. Now, since valuation of companies in emerging markets tends to be very volatile, it is not smooth. Valuing a company in an emerging market as compared to valuing a company in a developed market or a very stable market is going to be very, very volatile, very, very dynamic. You cannot assume anything there. You cannot assume that what is happening, what is good for company X, what's good for company Y also. No, two companies in an emerging market might display totally different uh, environmental factors or the influence of environmental factors, and accordingly you will have to rework on your valuation processes, because the process is going to be very volatile. It is not smooth. It is not a linear one line calculation. that is involved in valuation. There might be a lot of factors that may have to be taken into account while valuing the companies in these markets. So what we need to do is we have to triangulate a scenario. That means we have to consider three important factors. One is the country risk premium. Second one is the most choice of very appropriate multiples. To these two things you will have to incorporate in your valuation process. So it is not a straight line, simple, direct exercise. The valuation is not going to be that easy in case of the valuation of companies in emerging markets. It is multi-layered. It is having more than one angle. That is why that word you are seeing on this slide, triangulate. There is a 3D effect, 3D situation there. In this one is not a straight line exercise. So you will have to incorporate the country risk, the risks specific to that particular country, specific to India. If you are valuing the company in India, or specific to Israel, if you are valuing the company situated or having its business in Israel, what is the country specific risks? Second one, the, the choice of appropriate multiples. We have seen in the previous unit. You have to choose an appropriate multiple, a relevant multiple, whether it is PE ratio, whether it is EBITDA, or whether it is sales, or whatever. You have to carefully choose a multiple. You have to factor in and have to incorporate the impact of country risk into the DCF valuation process. Then your DCF methodology will be complete and will be more appropriate to serve the purpose of valuation. So you need to understand these special issues associated with valuation of a company in case of emerging market. So that is the another situation we have looked into. Can you see the next slide? Hello? Pooja, can you see the next slide?
Yes, sir.
Perhaps the best way to value a high growth, high risk
Sir.
company is, once again, perhaps the best way to value a company which is high growth, high risk companies to use scenario based DCF analysis supported by macro analysis. That is what I told you. You may have to, you must have come across this scenario analysis where you consider 2, 3 scenarios, a pessimistic, a more optimistic, an average scenario. So you will not assume something as certain. No, you will not value this one as at a given situation. No, you will assume 2, 3 situations. Suppose this happens, what is going to be the valuation? Suppose this happens, what is going to be the situation? Suppose this happens, what is going to be the valuation? Suppose the corporate taxation is going to be 20%, what is going to be the valuation? Suppose the corporate valuation is corporate taxation is going to be 30%, what is going to be the valuation? Similarly, suppose the fuel prices, for example, the industrial fuel prices is say 70 rupees per liter, what is going to be the valuation? Suppose it falls to 50 rupees per liter, what is going to be the value? Similarly, the suppose you are a very high growth company with lot of imports and exports. You will assume three situations with respect to exchange rate. Suppose the exchange rate is 70 rupees per dollar. What is going to be the valuation? What is the impacts on your export earnings or import costs? Suppose the rupee value, rupee dollar exchange rate increases to 50 rupees per dollar. What is going to happen to your valuation? So your earnings first, your profits, and your valuation. So similarly, another scenario. Suppose the rupee dollar exchange rate falls to 100 rupees per dollar. What is going to be your export earnings? What is going to be your profits? What is going to be your valuation? So in case of the valuation of a very high growth company, high risk company, especially in emerging markets, what we need to do is we have to use scenario based DCF analysis. We nevertheless continue to use the DCF methodology. That is a very fundamental, very strong, very important methodology. We can always depend on this, but we will have to modify this. We will have to modify this method to improvise on it, to make it more useful. So what we do is we develop 2, 3 likely scenarios: a worst scenario, an average scenario, a best possible scenario, and we project the sales, earnings, turnover, sales revenue, and the cash flows under these 3, 4 scenario, and we project or we compute the valuation. That should be a more a useful process of valuation instead of assuming one scenario as given, because these are very volatile situations in emerging markets. Nothing is stable, whether it is policy, not stable, tax rates, not stable, purchasing power of the domestic currency, not stable, balance of payments, not stable, nothing is stable. In that case, assume 3 scenarios instead of one as given. Assume 2, 3 likely scenarios. Project the earnings, project the cash flows, discount them, and find out the evaluation of the company based on, of course, the DCF method. So this is another issue, another important issue in valuation you need to be aware of. Are you all there? Are those off?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Are you able to note down these things? Shweta, Mary, are you getting the connectivity today?
Yes, sir.
I was wondering, many students were saying they were not getting the internet connection, but I was finding them regularly updating their DP status, etc. For that, they were getting the connection. I was wondering how this is possible. They are not getting the connection only for my class. Fine. I think the things are resolved now. Yeah, let's go to the next slide. Now, after these issues associated with different types of situations, high growth, emerging markets, etc., multi locational companies, multi business companies, etc. Now, issues involved in the valuation of certain specific companies. Now, you are seeing on the slide financial institutions, banks, and insurance companies, importantly, among the financial institutions, are some of the most complex companies to value. The valuers have found that valuing a bank with multiple branches, multiple products, etc., or insurance companies with similar features, multiple plans, multiple schemes, multiple customers or policy holders, and multiple business metrics are really difficult and complex, if not impossible, institutions to value, companies to value, especially for outside analysts, as they do not have some critical information such as asset liability mismatch. These institutions, being financial institutions, they will be having a lot of important critical information which are being treated as confidential. They are not supposed to be shared with outsiders. For example, the balances in accounts, the loan position in accounts, the default position in accounts, the payments made, the purposes for which the loans have been taken. You know the banking, the relationship between customer and the bank, and you know the issue of garnishi order and all, probably in banking law and practice. So banks, especially banks and even insurance companies, they are not supposed to disclose the information about a policy holder's sum assured, or the policies taken, or the declaration made, or the nominees suggested. They are not supposed to give this information to the outside world. They are confidential information. The banks hold them in a fiduciary situation, in a trustee position. They hold this information. So some critical information about the different aspects of the business of banks and financial institutions are not shared by them with the outsiders. And the analysts are the valuers like me and you who are outsiders who take up the valuation of a bank or a financial institution or an insurance company. We might not get all the information we require for the purpose of valuation. So that is a challenge the valuer faces in case of valuation of a company. This is because some critical information such as asset liability mismatch. One of the important thing probably you are able to remember because you have worked out the problems on banking companies final accounts in your UG or even in your account, I don't know, in your higher accounts, that banks are not supposed to disclose the bad debts in their income and expenditure account. How many of you are aware of this? If you look into the profit and loss account or income and expenditure account of a bank, you don't find an item called bad debts. Have you remembered of seeing any item called bad debts on the bank's profit and loss account on the debit side?
No, sir.
No, you are
No,
not
sir.
supposed. As per the Banking Companies Act, or the pro forma of final accounts, pro forma of profit and loss account mm, given as per the Banking Companies Regulation Act, banks are not supposed to disclose this because bad debts indicate poor management, bad debts indicate loss to the bank, thereby the trust of the deposit holders will erode, will be affected. So banks are not supposed to show the bad debts. What they do is they deduct the bad debts from their interest income and they show the net interest income on the credit side and on the income side. You are aware of this. So when this is the case, suppose as a valuer, if I want to know the bad debt situation, the NPA situation, the actual bad debts written off, banks won't disclose. And I have to assume that there are no bad debts companies doing very well with respect to its recovery. All the borrowers are regular. The bank doesn't have any arrears, then my valuation will be totally different. Even though bank might be having huge bad debts, it has covered up, of course, legally as per the provisions of the respective act, as per the provisions of the prescribed specimen. They have covered it up in their interest income, so I will not be able to know what is the bad debt, what is the loss facing the bank with respect to bad debts, what is the bad debts written off. So my assumption is going to be that everything is fine with this bank, and accordingly my valuation will be totally different, it will be very rosy. So this is a problem with the valuation of financial institutions. They do not, by way of their business norms, business practice, they don't share some critical information. The example given there is asset liability mismatch. You know, the assets of the banks means the loans and advances, liabilities means the deposits. The loans and the deposits should be in the ratio of, say, 100, say 70 to 100. If you have 100 rupees of deposits, you can give a maximum of 70 rupees as loan. You have heard of CD ratio also. And there could be a lot of mismatch between this. A bank might be having a lot of short-term deposits, whereas it might be having a lot of long-term loans. This is called asset liability mismatch. Suppose you have 100 crores of savings deposits, your long-term loans cannot be more than 100 crores. They should be a match. We call them different baskets of durations. 0 to 6 months deposits, 100 crores means 0 to 6 months loans should be less than 100 crores. 6 months to 1 year deposits is 100, 200 crores. Then the loans having a maturity of 6 months to 12 months cannot be more than 200 crores. Only when it is there, we call them asset liability match, or we call them ALM, asset liability match. In many cases, there might be a mismatch, and this is going to be very risky for banks. Banks might not share this information. What is the match? What is the degree of match between their deposits and credit? It should always be perfectly, they should be matched. So that is another issue we are facing, that is non-disclosure of certain critical information affecting our valuation process. Further, as these institutions are highly geared Geared means what? Hello? Hello? Hello?
Sir.
Sir.
What is this? Are you seeing the second bullet point there? As these
Yes, sir.
institutions are highly
Boosted.
geared. Gearing means
Highly
what?
boosted. Boosted.
Boosted by what? Highly geared means highly leveraged. Gear means, where do we use the gear? Where do we use the
Vehicles.
in vehicles? Why do we use the gear from first gear to second gear to third gear?
To increase speed, sir.
Increase
To
the
increase
speed.
the speed. Similarly,
Speed.
in case of business firms, debt is used to increase the earnings per share. You know this, is it not? We call. Are you aware of this? Using fixed cost bearing expenses or debt to increase the earnings per share, because interest on debt is tax deductible. To that extent your profitability increases. So many of these institutions borrow heavily from the market, either in terms of deposit liabilities or in terms of market borrowings, in order to finance their lending operation. Now what happens? Because these organizations, institutions, like finance institutions, are highly geared or highly leveraged, highly dependent on the bar or external liabilities. See, for example, the paid up capital of a bank might be 100 crores, but it might have given 1000 crores loan. Where from it is giving 1000 crores loan? From the deposits. Is it not? Not from the equity it gives 100 crore, but from the liability, that is deposits taken from the shareholder. These are the liabilities. You know this, is it not? Liabilities are the deposits are the liabilities of a bank. So it is like a debt for the bank. By using this debt, they are going to give the loans to make their earnings. So this is called highly gearing. With 100 crores of paid up equity, they are giving 1000 crores rupees loans. Means the balance 900 crores comes from the liabilities or the debt in the form of deposits taken from the people or the borrowings, bonds issued by the organization. So the banks and financial institutions do their business, do their lending business with the help of the liabilities or debt. This is called gearing. This is called gearing. Otherwise, if they were required to give the loans from out of their equity, then many banks would not have made this kind of loans at all. It is not possible, because you see the balance sheet of a bank, the paid up capital will be very few hundred crores, whereas loans and advances on the asset side show thousands of crores. Where from this money comes from? The money comes from the deposits. Deposits are the liabilities. Liabilities means debt. So debt is being used to do business. This is called gearing. When debt is used to do the business of lending, it is called gearing. And any small change in this, in the interest rate, in the tax rate, TDS, tax deducted at source, etc., with respect to this debt, that means it is their valuation is going to be highly affected. So that is another issue. The valuer is required to know what is the impact of gearing on the valuation. Whether the valuation is high on account of the bank being highly leveraged, or whether the valuation is low, is it because the bank is lowly geared? So those are some of the special issues you need to be aware of with respect to the valuation of a bank. I think the time is up. So what is suggested is a equity cash flow approach. You will see while working out the problems. You will see this approach is recommended. Of course, this is again a DCF approach, but it is not enterprise DCF approach. It is equity DCF approach. Probably when you solve the problem, probably you will be aware of this and you'll be able to follow this. But you need to know that instead of enterprise DCF approach, equity cash flow approach is recommended for valuing financial institutions. Okay, I am winding up at this stage. Hope you are able to follow. How many are still there? Yeah. Am I audible now? Hello?
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
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 Yes, sir.
Okay, I am 32 are there in the final count. Who has joined late? Up late? Yeah. Okay. So 32 are there. I am going to stop at this. Okay, fine. And then take care.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Shall I end the meeting? Fine. Take care.
Yes, sir.
Fine.
Yes, sir.
Fine. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. I have unmuted all. You can greet yourself and give me. Neha has joined now, I think. Okay. I have named all. Anybody I have left out? Anybody I have left out? No. Sharanya has joined. I think I had not named her. Rajesh is there. 33 are there. Good number today. So 33 means you have just made it 50%. Just made 50%. I want to see at least 75% in the next class. Tell your friends to be there, right? Why don't you just log in and sit back and watch the show? You are not required. In fact, in other classes, some other exercises are also being given. I am not troubling you at all. Just come, relax, watch the show, right? That's all. And if you are, hope you will not be able to find it difficult. Anyway, thank you all. I am ending this meeting. Okay, take care.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.